Hello Fast Fam, thanks for tuning in. I'm Craig Lieberman and I've been tinkering on cars since 1980. I've owned more than 40 cars in my life. Some were heroes, some were zeros. But never in my wildest dreams would I ever guess that 3 of my cars would go on to star in a motion picture franchise. My Supra, my GT-R, and my Maxima all had starring roles in Universal's Fast and Furious movies. Over the next 3 years, I'd served Universal as a technical advisor. I helped choose the cars, procure the parts, oversee their builds, and support both production and post-production. I have some cool stories to tell about what it was like to build these cars and to work with the cast. I was there, on set, in the production meetings, working on cars, hanging with the actors, and consulting on post-production. So follow along as I tell the stories. Let's jump in. Welcome back, everybody. This week I'm going to tell you a story that you've probably never heard. We'll do this right after the commercial break. Have you ever Googled your name? If you have, you were probably shocked to see some of your personal information floating around for the whole world to see. Every once in a while, I Google myself just for fun. I'm always surprised what kind of things are floating around the internet. It's just creepy that these companies have this information on me. So this is what they do. These data brokers are making money hand over fist by selling your info to robocallers, spammers, and in some cases, much worse. This is why I'm talking about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers who are exposing your information and then submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do that. So let Aura handle all of it for you. Now you can get off of all of those lists. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link here below, aura.com/Craig. Aura does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats that you can't even see. It's really easy to set up so you don't have to bother downloading several different apps just to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft, insurance, and even more. You get everything at one affordable price. So let Aura do all the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. After Universal finished filming the first Fast and Furious movie, I thought that was the end of my film career. But actually, it turned out that Universal wasn't done with me yet. But what came next was a tumultuous ride. By late 2001, Universal's marketing department hired me as a consultant to help promote the Fast and Furious movie prior to the public opening. But after that, that contract kept going on. What was I doing? I did many things, but mainly my job was to travel to car shows up and down the West Coast with Paul Walker to promote the movie. And then after the movie came out, of course, then they had their eyes on the DVD release. So they had me conduct media interviews on their behalf, mostly talking about street racing, all that kind of thing. I was telling all these news reporters that Universal's movie was not the reason that people street race. They've been doing it for 50 years. I did that for TV, I did that for radio, I talked to other countries, media outlets, all that kind of stuff, and I did that for a long time. And then when they started putting together the DVD, I was asked to host a special feature DVD segment with Playboy of the Year, Daylene Curtis, where we tricked out a Mitsubishi Evo. That was another project for me, no script, anything. So we're in my favorite spot, we're in the back seat, and I'm in the back seat. The back seat with the supermodel. As those projects and the needs of the marketing department waned, I figured that I was getting close to the end of my movie days. And about 2 weeks after my final contract was over, we were well into 2002, I got another call from my former boss, David Martyr. By this time, it turned out that Universal had decided to create a sequel. I thought it was going to be one and done, but I was totally wrong. I was first asked to go over and inspect the cars that we had left over from the first movie. By that time, it was almost 18 months had gone by since I started working for Universal. The cars were housed in an old building in Santa Clarita where a glass factory once stood. So I went up there to check on the cars, walked into this place. It was huge, and all those cars, there was like 50 or 60 cars. And while the cars were mostly intact, they were far from perfect. Some wheels were damaged, body kits were tore up, the interiors were disgusting. The cars were covered with silt and dust. So I took pictures and I took notes and then I left. contract. And I thought that was the end of that. I thought that maybe they're just going to sell the cars. A couple of days after that, I was invited to the new production office that they just set up in Marina del Rey. John Singleton was the new director, and I've met him there. And this was the beginning of something, right? So John, David, and a few others wanted to talk about car options. And so at that time, as you probably know, I already had my R34 GT-R, and I was about halfway through the plan of customizing the car. So I met John Singleton and showed the car to John and to David Martyr. Both agreed that this car would work for one of the main characters. They wrote it down and said, okay, we're pretty set on using this car for Brian's main car. And I was kind of like, oh, here we go again. What are you doing to me? I just got the Superbacker a few months ago. Shortly after that, I was asked to attend a more formal meeting at Universal Studios. This meeting was going to be with the studio bosses, the big guys, the main dudes and dudettes. So I was ushered into a giant conference room. In the room was a table with about 20 chairs. It was like a defense top secret room in the Pentagon or something. So I walked in there like I was supposed to be there. And I was just like, oh no, what do they want to ask me? I don't know what we're going to do here. Let's go. Present in the room at the time was Vice Chairman Scott Stuber. Stuber, if you don't know, was behind movies like A Beautiful Mind, 8 Mile, and of course the Fast and Furious movies, to name a few. They had hired John Singleton as a director for a very specific purpose. The choice of John Singleton was aimed at reaching a wider audience. They wanted to bring in everybody, all ages, all races, all that kind of stuff. I was asked to reprise my old role as a technical advisor, as it was before. I was tasked with recommending the cars we should use for the characters, advise them about technical terms, find the parts for the cars, save us money, all that kind of stuff. And I had already emailed a list to David Martyr in anticipation of this. I was told to bring this list to our meeting. And from the list that was sent to David Martyr, I was asked to set up a casting call in Santa Monica just to show the people at the Marina del Rey office the cars, what this car is going to look like. So this time, people showed up in droves. Remember in the first movie, we can only get like 20 or 30 people to come up. I put the word out on forums like Honda Tech, Celica.org, Lexus forums, all that kind of stuff. More than 600 cars showed up. It was gridlocked for 4 blocks in every direction. It was in the news and all that kind of stuff. So people from the Marina del Rey office came over to the parking lot and we walked around as much as we could. We saw so many cars, it was hard to choose, really, even for me. Basically, it ranged from nice to rice, from clean to mean, and some cars were so overdone that we would wanted them, but they were so complex. There was no way we could afford to or be able to reproduce those cars for stunt cars within a reasonable budget and on time. So, but I gotta say, to John Singleton's credit, he spent hours walking among the cars. He went through the whole parking lot. He walked up and down the streets for the cars who were stuck in traffic. He looked at all the cars and everything, wrote some notes and all that kind of stuff. But as it turns out, it was all for nothing. It turned out that the studio had decided to film in Miami. So when we got to Miami, we held another casting call. It was held at Homestead Racetrack in the parking lot. This casting call attracted more than 700 cars. 4 hours of looking at cars on a hot day. Singleton did it. He was a cool guy, and I really had great respect for him. But for this meeting at Universal, Singleton and Martyr had already penciled in my GT-R from Brian, so now we had to talk about the other cars for the other characters. So for Roman, I thought he would look cool in one of the new Nissan 350Zs, which was about to be released in August of 2002, which isn't just in time for the movie, maybe, if everything went well. Also at this meeting was a very seasoned lady called Melissa Kroll, who was at the time director of Universal Studios Partnerships. Her job was to procure partners for movies. Basically, she's the person who works to get products or brands integrated into movies and get paid for doing it. Let me put it to you this way. If you've ever seen an actor holding a Pepsi in a movie and you can see the label, you can bet for sure that Pepsi paid to do that, to see the logo. That's called product placement. That's what she does. As an example, in a car movie, if a brand wants exposure in a movie, they would contact Melissa, whether it's Pepsi or it's a Porsche, right? For a car movie like this, the smart move for Universal would be to reach out to car companies to see if a car company can provide cars for the movie, and then that car manufacturer would create their own commercial. That is a big thing, and that's what they were trying to get. Okay, so she didn't tell us what car brand, but I'm waiting for it. I was really excited about this because now brands are paying attention to this little movie. When the last movie, Fast and Furious 1, companies wouldn't give us license plate frames because they thought the movie was going to be trash. We've all seen these types of relationships with other movie franchises. Talk about James Bond movies with Aston Martin, Transporter movies with BMW and Audi. You get the idea, right? So that's what she was trying to do. The goal is to have the partner pay Universal for the exposure in the movie, and then they do their own marketing about their car and our movie. Those deals are usually worth millions of dollars for everybody. Dodge has done this many times. Look at this commercial.
Car chases make movies better. And Fast 5 has a lot of car chases. In theaters April 29th, at dealerships now.
At this point in the discussion, Melissa informed us that she had a deal on the table from a car company, and everybody's like, and we all perked up, and we waited with bated breath to hear what car company was going to be. I was praying for Porsche or Ford or something like that. It was Dodge. So right then, I went into Fast Frame and I was like running through the lineup of Dodge cars back then in 2002. Immediately I realized there was nothing good. Basically there was the Dodge Intrepid / Chrysler Concorde, the Dodge Stratus, the Dodge Avenger, and of course the Dodge Neon. Oh, it got Vipers. This is gonna be brilliant. That's gonna be great. So I'm waiting. So now I'm leaning forward. All excited that we're gonna get Vipers, and it's gonna be great. She can feel the energy in the room come up right that, yeah, Dodge wants in, man. They want in. We're getting Vipers? No. What are we getting? We're getting this new car called the Dodge Neon SRT-4. And I felt the wind leave my lungs. Oh, God. And I was like, unfortunately, when I heard Melissa say Dodge is giving us the Dodge Neon SRT4, I tried to hold it in, but apparently I was writhing in my seat and I started hyperventilating. Singleton, who was sitting 2 seats over, noticed my squirming in my seat and turned to me and said, Lieberman, you got something to add? Got something to say? And I said, no, John, I'm cool. I can wait. I can wait. No. You got something to say? Say it. Lieberman, I'm paying you for your advice. These are exactly the words. I don't want no booty in my movie. If this is booty I need to know right now. And I leaned back in my chair and I said, well, let me put it to you this way. Have you ever heard the phrase, you can put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig? I can hear gasps. My boss, David Martyr, who was sitting right next to me, reached over and grabbed my wrist as if I went too far on this one. I took a breath and Melissa Kroll jumped in and said, what's the matter? You guys can make this car really cool. I know you could, right? I told her, well, the Dodge Neon is basically known for being a cheap rental car. It's certainly not fast, and I think people can tell just by looking at that car that there's really nothing sporty or special about that car. You know, you can put crazy paint on it and put a wing on it and all the kind of stuff and cool wheels, but it's still a Dodge Neon, okay? So who do you envision driving this car in the movie? She said, Brian. I said, oh man, this is gonna be not good. She goes, what do you mean? You folks asked me to make sure that we get the technical details right in this movie. And there's gonna be some repercussions if we go this way. I responded basically, if you try to make a Neon SRT4 a main car, you're going to lose street credibility and more importantly, ticket sales. If you see the previews and a Neon SRT flying down the street, nobody's gonna be excited. So how much revenue would you lose on ticket sales? I have no idea. I don't want to predict. I have no data to tell you that, but I'll tell you this. Car people like me, I would not go to see that movie. But I can tell you this with great confidence. When that movie comes out, all the writers from the automotive magazines are gonna go right out, see this movie, and write articles about this movie, and it's gonna say, who the hell picked a Dodge Neon SRT-4 as the main car against Acura NSXs, Skyline GT-Rs, Camaros. You're going to get laughed out of the room, and the reviews are not going to be good, and it is going to affect you in a big way. Well, I'm telling these people this thing, I'm realizing in my head that I'm just an advisor, and if they choose to put a Neon SRT-4 as the main car, I'm going to have to quit, because I took enough heat from the first movie when they didn't fix the technical errors that I pointed out. So I said, maybe you can do something with the car on some kind of roll. We can probably do something with the audition sequence, but my boss had already bought 4 '69 Camaros and 4 Dodge Challengers and 4 replica Shelby Cobras. The Cobras were never used. They were kicked out of the movie, and they sent it to Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. If you see that movie, that's where those cars came from. So putting an unmanly SRT4 in that kind of situation, it just didn't fit. I basically shut my mouth at that point because I was seriously thinking about quitting. Not there at the time. I would just send an email. That's where we were at that moment. Then it occurred to me, why can't we get Vipers? That would be a great choice. Is Dodge paying for Dodge branding, or are they solely focused on promoting the Dodge Neon SRT4? At that point, she said they are more interested in promotion of the Neon SRT4. And I said, this car is not recognized as a tuner car by anybody at all. As a matter of fact, I don't think anyone in the USA thinks of a Dodge Neon as a tuner car. This was not a flippant comment. It was my educated opinion. You have to remember, at the time, I was the executive director of NYRA Drag Racing Series. That series went to 11 cities every year where we conducted a pro drag race event like NHRA. We had championship payouts, we had television coverage of every event, we paid out $15,000 of purse money every event, we had a contingency program, our series had pro and amateur categories, and we had a giant car show that regularly drew 1,500 cars per event. At these events, it was almost impossible to find a modified Dodge Neon, and when I found one, most of them looked like their modifications came from the accessory aisle at Pep Boys. I'm sorry, that's just the way it was, and I'm not trying to be mean to anybody, but I know people love their Dodge Neons, and I get it, but back then that's what it was, and you know it. Of course, eventually the SRT4 proved itself a very competent tuner car in the right hands, but at that time it had no reputation for being a sports car, and if we put it in the movie, it would be a very different outcome, I'm sure of it, and I was just going to die on that hill. So, but at that discussion, I paused for one more moment and I said, someday the SRT4 might be recognized as a tuner car, but right now the Neon name is only associated with being a rental car. Finally, she asked, and I think she was getting angry at this point, do you think car aficionados would go see this movie? I said, well, I wouldn't. If it came on cable for free, and I might watch it, but I'm pretty sure I would turn it off as soon as the SRT4 shows up at that 4-way race. With that, the meeting had run its course, and you can tell everybody just want to get the f out of the meeting. I was sure I was going to get fired. Instead, my boss and Ted Moser high-fived me as I was getting on the elevator. To Melissa's credit, she found another way. She didn't force us to use the Neon. Instead, she got Dodge to give us Vipers and the new Dodge Ram pickup, which was brilliant. And then the pièce de résistance. She created a relationship with Mitsubishi in which we were able to receive the new Mitsubishi Evo 7 in the United States, even before Evos were being sold in this country. In fact, those cars were on their way to a rally team in Europe. She was able to convince Mitsubishi to put those cars in our movie. But I have to wonder what would have happened if Paul Walker drove a Neon SRT4 instead of an R34 GT-R V-Spec. Would Dodge Neons be $150,000 right now? We'll never know. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get notifications when my new videos drop. I'll see you next time.